Well, hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming to the U Wealth Revolution Summit, Ascension Alchemist course with Kelly Hampton. My name is Linda Hendricks, and I am Kelly Hampton's assistant. Our next two calls are scheduled for the first Wednesday of the month, and that is March the 4th and April 1st at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. At times during our call tonight, we will have everyone's mics open, and they are open now, so that we can all share when the time is appropriate. But let's be aware that the background noises can be heard, and we'll want to be respectful to others on the call. If you want to mute yourself, most phones have a mute button, or you can press *6 to mute and unmute. And then the replay of this call will be available within the next 48 hours. So I'd like to introduce to you Kelly Hampton. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Linda. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live again this evening or listening to the replay later. Seems like it's been forever since we were together last, but it really hasn't. And one of the questions someone wrote in on a topic was, maybe we could talk about how to dismiss time, earthly time. So that might be quite interesting. But just to kind of take a few minutes here at the beginning of the top of the show, or if it extends itself further into the hour that we have here together, we are trying to work into our ever-growing nature as alchemists. And for Michael's, if you missed the replay or whatever may be, and you're listening for the first time, and for those of you that might have gotten involved in the homework from our January call, I'd like to read through kind of sort of what we were asked to do, and if those of you that are on the line participated, share what you did. I've gotten one sharing from a caller already that I'd like to share when we get into that. But one of the homework assignment exercises from Archangel Michael for opening our heart, that was kind of the topic. We talked about love. One of the exercises was to collect objects, and one of the objects Michael suggested was a piece of wood. Any wood that calls to you. How will it speak to you? Will it speak to you by its beauty? Will you hear it? Will you ask the tree to release something to you so it gently may have a tactile experience or a knowing sensation? Ask for it to be shown to you. So object 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll see if somebody did some of these objects. I'll share what I have in front of me, and then share as long as we are here to share, and then move into your questions about a topic. Again, some folks have written in that I guess can't make the live call from where they are in the world, but they do want to see if we can direct some of our teaching tonight in these areas. So the second object was a stone that speaks to you. Michael says, one stone, any stone. Ask the stone if it is willing to come to you and leave the family group. The third object, some type of leaf or stem from the plant kingdom. And then the exercises of discovery. So maybe before we go into those, did anybody that's listening live here take this lesson to heart? There was another lesson about a love letter to ourselves and an exercise of service. So if you did, we'll open up the mics and see if there's sharing. If not, I have one sharing from one of our fellow alchemists here that I can read and share with everybody. Did anybody get their wood? Did anybody get their stone? Did anybody get their plant? So we will probably have these notes in our replay email call with the link from tonight. So if you were lying in a hammock for a week or a month of vacation, now you can, still get involved in these alchemy exercises to further grow you so that you're, a live participant in, not just on the receiving end necessarily, but you're on the doing end. I would like to read a submission from one of our fellow alchemists. The subject, the significance of a tree and an amber stone, is what this particular person noticed. So she just wrote and shared with us that the significance of the tree very interesting, attracted her attention during her walk. It was a tree. She writes, a very big, tall tree, a beautiful, majestic tree she found in an old, traditional Australian house. She was filled with so much admiration and wonder, I began to express my feelings to the tree, also using her voice through sound. She said to the tree, "You are so beautiful, so powerful, so divine. Blessed are the people who live in this house." And before she finished her last words, she writes, a white light appeared in front of the upper trunk of the tree. I became quiet for a while. There was so much love, so much wonder, so much grace, a real dance, a dance of giving and receiving. And when the unintended big wow came out of my mouth, the majesty true withdrew its light. Well, beautifully written, I would say. Another sharing about a stone. Our fellow alchemist said, I bought a beautiful amber stone from a quite expensive store. A few days after, I went back to the store to exchange the stone because I found that the amber was, quote, defective. The assistant there was not in a good mood, and I came back home with the stone. Sometime later, I took out the amber stone of my pocket, and I gave her a kiss and began to write my experience. To my astonishment, I remember nothing. Only a few minutes later, I began to remember everything in great detail. I was able to feel the feelings of the store assistant's girl. She looked into the amber stone and asked the stone, "Is that you?" I asked. And the answer telepathically was, "Yes, I am." It was through thought transference, telepathy. The stone had absorbed all the negative from the store's atmosphere and the story in detail. The stone, amber, worked as my protector. Wonderful sharing there. Appreciate that. Let's move on, if I can, to anyone that might have done the sharing. And just remind you, try to maybe get yourselves involved in next month's class, sharing of exercise of self-love. Did anybody move into that? You were to write a love letter to yourself. Write down 100 to 1 million things you love about yourself and share with the group. So if we didn't do some of those things now, I'm going to ask those of us that are on the live call to verbally state some things we love about each other, just so Michael doesn't, come and smash us or something. So was any of that done? If not, I don't know how many you've unmuted everybody, Linda, but for those that are joining us here and made time and space in your time to do so, I'd like to at least put the vibration out there so we don't leave this unattended. It is probably one of the very most important, powerful things that we can do for ourselves, and that is, of course, all things come from love of self. I wonder if did anybody get to 10 things? That's a no. Did I hear no?
No, I think that was feedback. But we are unmuted, so you guys speak up.
Okay, so I'm just going to start the ball off here, and I'm going to make a statement of self-love, and then whoever else is in the call. There's no passing on this, okay? I love my humor. Step forward, friends.
That's what I was going to say. I love my happy heart and my sense of humor.
Okay. Let's keep going.
I love my intelligence.
Okay. The other thing is, I first of all want to appreciate everybody's switching in midstream about how we're conducting these calls, and I hope we didn't lose too many folks in the translation of how you're calling in tonight as how we did it on our first call, but all the other remaining alchemy classes we're going to be having are going to follow this format and this number, so we should be moving along. Was anyone of service? I believe it was Michael. I'm not sure who the guides were that were coming through that were asking us to get involved in our planet. Become focused, dedicated, become passionate without judgment, anger, or resentment. How would you go about changing transformation? Pick one thing and how would you change it? Take some action, constructive, loving action. Send loving light. Tell us what you did. Tell us what matters to you. So again, if it wasn't made to be your mission last time, try to make it part of your mission in your lives before we convene together. As Michael's asking us to stretch ourselves, to give love and be love. That's how that exercise came about. I think we're focusing on love. One of the topic suggestions for tonight's call was, two suggestions really. One, how to detach ourselves from the outcome, which I thought is excellent because that's how our minds are quite normally wired, including beliefs and associations. And the other topic request, one of the fellow alchemists wanted to at least have us touch on a little bit of our time, was how to dismiss earthly time. So I am going to start downloading if you want to quiet the mics, Linda, and we'll move into this teaching. We'll see who wants to come through, maybe do a prayerful invocation. Okay, and then if you can they write in if they're muted, if they want a topic of their own. I think I might have cut some folks off from sharing their own topic. Otherwise, I'll see who wants to come through, what we're going to learn about these two things tonight, and certainly by all means, if there's a topic you want covered, we could talk about, touch upon the new astrology system Michael's going to be downloading soon next week, at least touch upon elements of it. He's calling it Dominion. We could talk about the harmonic convergence, what that means, and how you can use harmonics in healing and different things of that nature. So if we want to close our eyes just a moment, imagine that we're united in a circle of hearts and minds. I'll bring in Michael first. Ask for a prayerful invocation. Most recently there was a beautiful overlaying healing visualization with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Ashtar, and Michael. I don't know if he wants to go to that kind of thing again, but are there some words from the High Council, is it an energetic transmission that we can be receiving as we move into more teaching about how we can more fully step into our power and who might, if it's important for us to know who the light source is, if you wanted to identify yourself. Okay, this is what I'm hearing. For now, I would identify myself as Saint Germain of the Violet Flame, you might say. So I myself call myself Saint Germain. I myself would ask each and every one of you to imagine a sea of tranquility that lies in front of your visual minds with your eyes closed. What does the sea of tranquility look like to you? It sounds nice, tranquility. Do you really know what being tranquil means? When was the last time you experienced tranquility? Maybe it was just a moment ago. Maybe it was through a hug or a whisper or a sip of warm tea. Maybe it's been many, many, many moons before you've experienced any tranquility or you feel you have. So if we're visualizing the sea of tranquility, it looks to me sometimes, or I can help you along, imagine a pearl essence looking ocean. Not teal, not green, although if you're seeing it that way, wonderful, you can create your own. But for those that are needing some assistance with the visualization, just to center ourselves, bring ourselves into collective cohesion, this sea of tranquility that I see is pearl. It's a pearl essence, a pearl opalescence sort of. That's the visual, sort of like an opalescent pearl or a wonderful shell from your ocean, and it extends in all directions. The vibration of the sea of tranquility that exists on every planet as we come to know it does look differently in different dimensions. There is a sea of tranquility in every universal planetary system, and right now we're just using, without identifying which sea and which planetary system this opalescence sea is from, bringing it in your heart center and your mind's eye, mainly to raise our vibration when we're all focused on the same thing, the the collective consciousness expands itself by miles and miles. I will step aside now and allow my friend Archangel Michael to see if you would like to talk about what the importance and how each and every one on the human plane can dismiss earthly time and what the healing benefit may be from it. Okay, thank you. Okay, Michael, our friend Michael. Dear Michael, what's the importance, what alchemy type teaching, about dismissing time? And again, if some of you already sort of do things to dismiss time, even if it's not so much alchemy except turning your clocks over for a day, sometimes Archangel Michael suggests that to clients when their things are a little bit out of disharmony. I'll say turn your clock backwards for at least 4 hours to reset a circuit and everything else that pertains to time. So, Michael, in the context of what we're sharing and teaching here, what would you like to share with us about dismissing earthly time, and is it of importance? Okay, thank you. Please begin. It is, as I would say, of universal importance, and all things are relative. My importance doesn't mean it's yours. And my importance is not even the very highest ranking importance. So maybe important because words carry power. Let's just say we're going swimming in the sea of tranquility, and we're looking at ways to understand things, maybe question things, maybe even stretch things, and it may not be the least bit important to some of you. So I say to you, we're stretching ourselves, growing into our shoes as men and women, fellow alchemists, and talk about earthly time. Earthly time is an illusion. Maybe you've heard this before, and you'd say, well, okay, that's a fine spiritual statement, but how does this have any bearing in my life? How does this have any bearing in expanding me into my higher power as a multidimensional cosmic being that is capable of great power? And I would like to move to that right now. As she speaks for us collectively, it is going to be useful for some of you that we know operate on the fast track of life. Do exactly that simple thing, exercise to begin with, and that would be turning your all instruments of time backwards, facing away from you, so you disengage yourselves. What we're really talking about in a way is time is a funny thing, isn't it? You yourselves may have experienced. When you're in the creative flow, you can spend all day in something and you look up at a clock and where did the day go? On the other hand, if you're in doing something that bores you and drudgery energy is written all around it, or even if you're in the states and the throes of grief or a very stressful situation and the mind is trying to reason out a solution, days go on endlessly into weeks. Sometimes they can go on to months, and so on and so forth. So the study of time can be useful as seen as a healing tool. That's another way of looking what alchemy is, using energy for your highest good and for the highest good of others. And so if time is getting in your way, I feel as it's a very appropriate topic to spend at least part of our teaching time here together. And I'd like to continue with different ways time is evaluated in different cultures and through different, maybe even different realms of existence, and also what those of you that live on the earth plane can do to sort of get it in tune in an energy way. I'm not going to talk about planning your day. We're talking more about energy alchemy and the like. So just to continue and finish the first exercise for advancement, really, is to free yourself from the context of time by turning all indicators of time backwards for a 4-hour minimum. 4 minutes won't do anything. 1 hour will do a little. 4 hours is best. At any time that it moves you. Those of you that are most courageous will choose to do this when you know in a day or two it's a very busy day. Others of you, again, you don't have to have courage. This is not a test of the most courageous. It's really not a test at all. I would just be asking you to open your hearts and minds to the idea that what rules your life? That's really the inferred question in the sharing that the individual has asked. Of what importance is time? How important have we made time? Self-reflect on this a moment. What do you have to get done by a certain day, a certain time? How much of your life is regulated by time, either from the past or the future, with very little thought given to being present in the moment. Because when one is present in the moment, it's almost virtually impossible to go to the future or the past. It is possible for a soul to live your earthly life and honor, you might say, the commitments that you have. I would say to some of you, you don't need an alarm clock every day to tell you to get up and go to your jobs. Your body has already been hardwired. Why not shut off the alarm clock and just let the natural rhythm of your body wake you up, or whatever it may be? But a 4-hour segment will reset many circuits for many individuals back to a greater place of, I'm going to use the word harmony. It's going to kind of like temper down the things that have, it's like the human condition in many ways has become like a wound-up spring. And certainly, though, some of those souls that are more connected with the earth, let's talk about those that are connected with the earth and they have no clocks. They tell time in other manners. They have no calendars. They have no smartphones. They have no technology reminding about when to do things. Do you know what we find quite often, and maybe some of you will already know the answer to this? They are some of the happiest souls on the planet. Think about that for a moment. Those without timepieces are often, as we find in the realm where I reside, the happiest on the planet. How can this be? Doesn't the world operate on order? So, let's continue the sharing. It doesn't mean in some ways that they have not learned to read other signs of time, the sun, the moon, the stars, the shadows, the seasons. Many, let's just put the word in there, naturalists, many of those that live off the land. They know the harmonic time of the seasons, or they know the harmonic time of a growth cycle very well. Many cultures, many customs know this well. I would invite some of you to reach yourselves into that direction if you haven't. It's not about just the privileged world countries where time clocks are available and smartphones regulate your world. It's about restoring yourselves to a more original state of being where I suggest to you, as the question has been asked, earthly time isn't even necessary. It's not a quotient of happiness. In fact, in some cases, as I've said 3 or 4 times here now, it's a deterrent. Oh, I don't have time left for this, too much time for this, how much for this? And so I say to you again, as alchemists, pick up something new about nature. Look at the seasons, study the stars, study the growth cycle of a plant. Learn other ways of being in a more natural rhythm, ocean tides. The natural biorhythms of your natural world. They're on a, you might say, a infinite mind time clock. There's cycles to follow. Harvest moon cycles. Many of you know quite a bit about the cycles of the moon and the cycles of these things. And if you don't know much and it piques your interest, in a way to open up your hearts and minds to understand that as much as technology is advancing mankind, in some ways it's also holding him and her back. So I would suggest to some of you, what can be the greatest healing, one of the greatest healing tools in your world? You say disconnect. I'm disconnecting. I'm going out in the middle of wilderness for the weekend, and I'm going to sleep till I sleep and I feel like getting up. I'm going to eat when I want to eat, when my body internal clock tells me I'm going to eat, and I'm going to sleep when I'm sleepy, rise when I want to rise, act when I want to act. And if you were to do this over a short period of time repeatedly, you'd be setting your own biorhythms to a more natural state of being. Even with that being said, if someone is more of a scientific mind and wants to examine the growth cycle of a flower, but I want to pick a particular flower because they don't all grow at the same time, how about a sunflower? There's significant wisdom and teaching in sunflowers, the Fibonacci sequencing that is present in all of nature. Part of that spiral, that clockwise spiral that's represented in the sunflower, is found in other pine cones and many other things in nature. Maybe you make it your intention to study the time that can be found in the Fibonacci sequencing in nature. Nature has its own cycle of time. Human beings can have their own cycle of time, and it has nothing to do with what you might call a calendar or a day or a night. Some of the, I will just call it programming of the human condition as such, early on in mankind's development there was, as I come to see it, programming put into the fourth dimensional plane of Mother Earth to sort of keep mankind in this time-based reality. And for thousands of years, almost 2011 years of time, the oppression worked in many ways. It worked. Now, however, since 2012, we're finding that as unseen oppression is lifting from your planet and from each and every one of you as you spend more time in love, that's why the initial homework of loving oneself and writing the love letters are so incrementally important, not only to yourself, but you're helping others on the planet, because when your energy field is filled with greater love and you walk by someone whose field is lesser than yours, it, in other words, has less love than you do, even without you being able to see it or know it, some of the particles, bare minimum, 100, bare minimum, particles of the higher frequency have attached to the person that you might find depleted in that moment. So moving on, if I am being of some help and I haven't bored you all to tears, Michael's saying, the idea about suppression and elevation of time and what the purpose of suppressing humankind into a time-based reality, because it always has been, even with the earliest of the Incans. They the earliest founders on your soul, even the earliest star seeds, even the earliest star visitors to your planet were well aware that this was coming, and many things were done to try to prevent what I'm calling the institution of a very rigid systems of time, one of which is called the calendar, or various calendars that you might refer to. At some point, we might find it interesting if our convening moments take us this way to examine some of the things that occurred in earthly time that didn't occur then at all, and why those times were sort of downloaded or shared as your spiritual truth. But perhaps that is another day. I almost said another time, but I stopped myself, Michael's saying. So if we talk about the idea again of time being an illusion, maybe your hearts and minds can think of other things that you can do to free yourself from time. That's really what we're talking about. Knowing that time is of the moment, it's of the breath, it's of every breath you inhale and every breath you exhale. Inhale gratitude, exhale exasperation. Inhale love, exhale disappointment, and so on and so on and so on. Look to the seasons to guide you. I'm inviting some of you to be more, don't be afraid to live not off the land, but with the land. That's another misnomer, living off the land, living with the land. I say to you, even if you're a businessman or woman and you're running one of the most, let's call it, largest expansive billion-dollar corporations in any country, any major city, London, Paris, Frankfurt, Geneva, wherever that may be, this teaching is also for you. It will enrich your lives in ways that you cannot imagine. And what's the teaching? To disengage on a regular basis, as I come to see it, with time-keeping methods. And relying more on connecting with your higher self about your internal self. People will be more productive, for one thing. This is something that's quite known well on Earth. If you prescribe to any notion, it becomes your paradigm, doesn't it? It becomes your truth. So if you prescribe to the paradigm that everyone needs 8 hours of sleep, and you're forcing yourself to sleep when this is really not the truth, many souls can get by on 2 hours of sleep and be quite well and good about it. Then if you try to reframe your thinking along with the elements of time and just settle into a more natural pattern. I'm not asking any one of you to do anything that you may not have already thought of doing before. But when we say time is illusion, we could talk about time travel. We talk about time travel and moving from what we said there. Some of you have already gone to deep states of it's not really an altered state because it's the state that humankind is to be in. And that means multidimensional in any given moment. But if we're talking in a way that if some of you have meditative quieting of the mind, sound healing, if you're making space, if you call it prayerful invocation, if you call it chanting, if you call it deep breathing, releasing, ascension breathing even, if you're doing things of this nature, to what you're really in essence trying to do is disassociate yourself from Earth time. It's another aspect of what the fellow alchemist is asking. And I'd say to you, well, that's certainly a part of it. Living in the moment and using deep restfulness. Huge amounts of creativity can accomplish the same thing. So getting back to the point of time travel, the purpose of time travel for the uninitiated is to spread love. So as long as we're on the topic of time, let's extend ourselves and have a brief conversation about this, and then I'll pause and see if there's any questionings or further expansion that needs to be done. Again, the purpose of time travel, Michael's saying, is to transmute disharmony and spread love. Some of the very aware souls on our planet, some of them may even be you listening, can easily transport yourselves to other dimensions and have done this, whether it's through meditation or whether it's through the open chamber nautilus shell that is similar to sort of dropping an engine into a car through the Star Healing system. If others of you have accessed multidimensional travel through your own light being guides, many of the light beings are sharing this information through light coding. I myself am doing some of it as well. Might call it ascension toning. There's various different ways that a soul can sort of enter the frequency of, again, it's an altered state, but it's not really. In other words, a very deep, relaxive state so that you're connecting with your higher self. Might be crystal sound, bowl sound that gets you there. You can ask for help. If you want to time travel, you've never tried doing this before, ask for protection. That would be wise and useful. There's still interstellar interferences, as we call them, so it would always be wise to ask for protection. And if you want to know, you can go to past, present, and future, and you can go to multi-dimensions at once. So some of you, this isn't earth-shattering or jaw-dropping information. It's for some of you it may be, and for others, oh yeah, you know what, I am familiar with this. Thank you, Angel. But the value of this is as you're expanding and reaching into your full human potential as multidimensional beings. I would say as many as I enlist those in my army to go to different places on Earth to do light work, I'd say, well, I'll enlist every one of you that are on the call tonight, and I'd ask you to go to different planetary systems, if you were willing, and do it through time travel. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the aspects of that. And go there, look around, see what needs to be made more well. Some of the younger souls to finish that stream of thinking, consciousness sharing, Michael's saying. Ask almost any child under the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11, 12 what time travel is, and many of them will tell you if they've been nurtured and there's no fear about reprisal, they'll tell you, well, they see time clocks quite often. They see visions of themselves being in different times on earth. Some of the youngest see themselves at the feet of Christ as a disciple. Some of the younger, even young and middle-aged adults. Again, you don't necessarily have to be young to be doing this, but the point is those that have entered in with a higher vibrational nature know how to escape the earthly confines of time more easily and quite readily do so. Much of it's untalked about just because I feel as though there's a level of planetary acceptance that hasn't yet been shared and shown. It's a bit like walking around your street perhaps, and you've decided to wear purple polka-dotted pants and a red flaming hat, and you wonder why everyone else isn't doing the same. So my encouragement to everyone is if you're the parent, grandparent, the elder, or any kind of caregiver or someone in the care of these young adults that have this awareness, and the youngest of the children, extend your hearts and minds. Ask them what they see. Ask them what they know about time travel. They're waiting for someone to ask them, largely, many of them. Ask them where they're going to send their healing and loving work, because that's why they came here. So many of them, and you too for that matter, can choose to go to places in your past history to transmute disharmony. So if you chose to travel back to the time of the Civil War, for example, and you were hoping to erase some of the particles of bloodshed that still leave a residue on Mother Earth's soil, you can do it through erasing earthly time and using portals or wormholes to go through and access infinity is what you'll be accessing, and your heart and your mind can determine. You would ask for. My recommendation, if we're just starting this kind of journey together into time travel, that some of you pick a place, you pick a time. If there were a particular time in your studies, let's say, here's a good one, and some of it can be present. You don't have to go too far back in time, but let's just go back to the time of the Roman Empire, he's saying. And those of you that might find some aberration or abhorring of this killing and slaughtering of animals, as the gladiators might do for sport. Well, then in your developing selves as working with energy, some of you might choose to time travel, transport yourself to that place and time, and go back to that time and spread the love, healing energy over that time, so that the residual energy that is not only there in Mother Earth, it can also be sort of locked into air pockets in the land above. So this may be news to some of you, but again, it's not all bloodshed that goes into the soil on your planet, for example. Right now we're just focusing on your planet. There are pockets, I'm calling them like air bubbles, the air streams, right? You have streams of air, so it's not unusual that we find that there are pockets of, I'm calling them air bubbles, that are highly dysfunctional, where the atrocity on Earth has maybe transmuted its frequency from the soil of Mother Earth, but it's risen above and it hovers over her and it looks like a capsule. Generally the capsule is a grayish kind of color. Might be deep, sort of deep blue-gray. Worst cases, it's black, very dark gray. But if you have sighted vision, I think some of you might see this. Some of you might feel it. If you've ever been on any just say travel vacations, Michael's saying, to places where blood was shed, and or next time if it moves you to do so. If you don't want to sort of tap into your abilities to time travel and you're on a tour bus, Michael's saying, and you get out and you know that there's some blood that's been shared, or you feel that's the truth, or you see it or sense it, look for these capsules that can be floating over the areas and do some energetic work. I'll tell you what you can do to transmute them so they're no longer in the atmosphere of your world. One of the things souls can do is simply, if you see the bubble mass I'm trying to describe, they vary in size and diameter and width. Normally they're of an ovular type shape. They're not a square. They don't take complex sacred geometry forms, of course, by any nature. They're usually kind of like a stringy sort of stratus massy thing. But it's not up in the sky. They're hovering closer to your ground. They're no taller usually than a 3-story building. So many of you will have an inner knowing about what to do when you come upon these gray bubbles of dysfunction. Others of you might like to be led right now, and I would say simply take your hands upright. If you get a sensation where something's dense, okay, give yourselves more credit for the power that you have, and gently extend your hands and ask for loving light source energy, whatever you ask for all your helper friends, to transmute that disharmony with white and gold light. If you want to make a pushing movement with your hands, even if you feel it 3 feet above your own physical body, and keep your palms facing the energy of dysfunction, it will eventually disseminate or dissipate or disintegrate. And you've done something helpful for the planet. So if we're going back to the idea of time traveling, and I'm being clear with different ways to access that, there's not one way that works for everyone. As I say, in star healing we use the nautilus shell because every chamber in that shell represents a dimension, and it represents the highly sort of magical, mystical, almost revered nautilus shell. So that is a tool of exploration for some, and use of through the system would be my preference. Breathing, ascension breathing, sometimes called the infinity breath. There's a little bit of a difference, but not much. The other things we talked about, sound. We're really still talking about time and how relevant it is and isn't to us in our lives and the lives of future generations. So time travel. Ask the young ones. Teach them. Ask them. Inquire. They're the teachers of the world. So ask them to teach you much of what's not being taught here about it. They will bring you along with you on their journey quite easily. They might say something like, just take my hand, Grandma. Then Grandma would take their hand. You're generally not going to physically leave your body, but I would say that you will telepathically leave your body, and you will project yourselves initially, if you're beginning this, rather than just sort of go willy-nilly everywhere, flying around, he's saying, like Peter Pan. I would suggest that you pick a place, pick a consciousness that you feel as though has, or you know it is dysfunctional. Is anything that falls outside of love has a level of dysfunctionality. Perhaps not such an obvious example, other than war and bloodshed. Let's talk about famine. Famine certainly can be a need for souls to go back. There have been many famines in your earthly plane. There have been many plagues in your earthly time frame. Much of them did really exist. A few of them were fabrications, but to stay on topic, for the most part, many of them were not manipulated. He means they weren't made up or manipulated for our knowing. Many of these things did occur, and you would still be, again, helping those that still live in the present area by time traveling to a region, back in time, back in time, back in time, back in time. You can also go forward in time, forward in time, forward in time. if you're thinking, as we talk about the world being totally love-based, why would I go forward in time, Angel, with time travel if the purpose is to spread more love, if everything's going to be love? And I'd say, well, there are about 16 universal systems, as I see them, or universal planes where more are being birthed every day, and there's different levels of peace and contentment and purity and light on them all. So there is still value in projecting oneself forward if those of you have not already made a conscious decision to want to time travel forward. Some of you might want to time travel to the year 2300. Look around, see where you are. Ask what needs to be done. Ask for protection, ask in the light, ask for the Holy Council to show you. I'm just picking a year, he's saying. Tell them you're on a mission. Tell them, if you're hearing my words, that you're on a mission. And your mission is to spread love and harmony. Ask them to describe where you are if you don't get an inner knowing. Or stay in the space long enough, devote enough time while it sort of can be a practice for some souls to learn how to time travel if it's not a tool-induced one. Not every soul needs a tool-inducing, and I'm not exactly advocating what you might say psychedelic drugs for this trip. These trips of this type are not, they don't need the necessitation of any type of stimulation of this type. It's all contained within, okay, depending on what your level of openness is and belief is. If you believe you can time travel, then that's half the readiness of getting yourself there. So you can certainly time travel to multiple dimensions at once, to multiple places at once, or if you're just beginning, as I say, you might find it more believable in your hearts and minds, comfortable, safe, whatever word we're putting there, to pick a particular moment where your heart was really wounded when you think about something. Some of you might say, Dr. Martin Luther King is wounding. Go back to that time. Energetically go back to that time and look around with your telepathy, with your feeling, your knowingness. Ask your guides, ask the High Council, if it's not shown to you in vision, what you can do to help lift anything that may be remaining there. In other words, you don't have to go back thousands of years. Go back 10. Go back 10 days. That makes little difference to us. So it's easier in some ways, we feel, to push some of you forward and allow certainly the young souls of your planet to do what they came here to do, if you're not so bound up in timekeeping on Earth. Hey, it's Kelly.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I dropped off. Is everybody there?
Everyone's here.
Okay, so sorry.
We all waited for you. The last thing you said was bound by time on Earth.
Okay, well, I'm so sorry about that, everyone. So Michael was just getting ready to ask if there were questions. So I'll open it up, see if there are questions about what he shared. We can dig a little further into this in our time, or we can move on to a topic that somebody might want kind of at least brushed upon or examined. Time travel, time. Anybody have any questions?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Who's this? Hello?
Yes?
Yes? Do you have any sharing?
Yes, but something is going on here.
Hey, Linda, has everybody got a good connection here? Hello, Linda, my helper.
I was talking to myself. I had my mic muted. I'm sorry, everybody's connected. There's just a little bit of interference or feedback, so I think that'll help. So go ahead and try again.
All right, I'm sorry, dear. Did you have something you want to share? Well, I guess not. So if you want to join in again, just let us hear from you, okay? So I want to make the greatest use of our time here and continue on with what Michael would like to teach us, and I'm going to start with that now. So I guess I'd mute everybody again, Linda, okay? And then if you had questions and we didn't get to you, by all means, you're always welcome to email them to me, and we'll present them in our next call together. Okay, thank you. So, Michael, we're listening for your sharing. What else would you like to teach us? Is there something about you guide us? Are you finished with? You want to go on to more about time travel, or time codes, other ways to tell time? Yes, he said. Yes, I think it would make sense to make a completion of this topic, if I may. There's endless teaching, really, where I could go from here. I do feel as though there is, let's talk about quickly here, I'd like to mention a harmonic code, a numeric code. It's not a tone, for the infinity symbol or infinity of time. That if you find yourselves, let's just say some of you are listening and say, well, I kind of get the idea of what the angel was talking about, but I don't, I can't live without time. I would say to you, if you choose to use this numeric code that is the equivalent of the infinity symbol, infinite everything, I think you'll find that you'll see with some continued usage that the time constraints, somehow time will be better for you. So if you're under time constraints with the use of this harmonic number, you'll find that you're not under such constraints. Or if the constraints are there, your own mind releases any constraints that are there. There's less resistance there. Or suddenly you'll find that someone might have more time to complete a project than they might have had they not considered the code. Again, it's another tool to consider in our teaching of all the tools we shared here. So the numeric, you might say, well, Angel, we know what this is going to be. It's going to be all eights for infinity. But we're talking about the number that represents infinity as it relates to the erasure of time, or the time continuum. And so the number code is not all eights. In fact, it's 00009. That's a harmonic code that some of you can use to erase what we call the time continuum. For what purpose? For your healing benefit. Like any code, if some of you have already come to some of the harmonic teachings through my work in other ways, it is an energy statement. just like meditation is an energy statement, just like energy healing is an energy statement, just like color and thinking and thoughts and affirmations, they're all, but harmonics coding in a numeric fashion. My counsel to most of you would be to use it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, he's saying. Not in a day, but over the course of a few days. So once a day maybe. And then put it aside and make note. Be intended. It's called intended awareness. See if what I'm sharing with you is true. In other words, take time to notice. This is what time can do. Sometimes time robs us from noticing what we're here to do, what the purpose of life is, because the mind so often wants to go to the future or the past. So the mnemonic code will be helpful for some of you, if not all of you. Bare minimum, it should impart a more relaxed feeling. If you're wondering, okay, Michael, I've not heard this teaching before. Well, how would you say the numbers, but how would I use them? Would I say them to a clock? Or no, my friend, I would say you can write them on a piece of paper. You can draw from left to right the number sequence in the air, even, you might say. It can be useful to be by a mnemonic device of time, but it could even be a calendar, something of this nature. Okay? So that's how it can be sort of implemented. That's how it would be implemented. Moving on. There are advantages to understanding that, it's not as though I'm asking us to run from time. Some would say time heals all. Well, I'm asking your minds to think about this. Does it or doesn't it? Does it or doesn't it? Again, reference to how much time. I would say to some of you, if we erase that paradigm from our conscious thinking and we determine in a moment that if there was an injury to us, an emotional wounding, or let's say someone very near and dear to us of an emotional wounding transitioned, that's often where we hear it, oh, time heals all wounds. Some of you may even think it's biblical in nature. Some of you may even think that I stated that myself. But it is sort of an illusion in another paradigm. So I say to you, if we remove that from our conscious thinking and instead say something like, or think something like, I'm whole and complete, that changes everything. I'm whole and complete. I'm processing now what I need to. I'm trusting that I'll process it thoroughly. Things of this nature have more value in many ways than, again, using the expression, time is the greatest healer. Time has nothing to do with it, he's saying. Maybe it might be interesting to kind of pick up our tempo here in our last remaining minutes and talk about how animals see time. Might be fun, he's saying. So, do you know that in the way that human beings are, animals have a sense of time? I would suppose you might. Do you know that they're very much, so if I say to you, oh, what did she talk about through the angel? You should say, well, she taught us how to think like an animal and to think and disregard time. Well, that might be part of the essence, but it's not to be berated. In other words, it's not to be mocked. In other words, the animal kingdom, are they not very well connected with the earth? Because they're born of its soul. And some of the most highly evolved animals on your planet are those that live in the ocean, the dolphins, the whales. And they communicate through sonar. They communicate. The sonar that they use is a way to tell time. it's the way that they tell time. They use it at times. It's not purely for location, as your minds might be taught or learned, or you yourselves might be scientists and know to believe this to be your truth. But an aspect, again, if I'm here only to stretch your minds in a new direction, part of the sonar that comes from the dolphins and the whales, particularly the larger mammals in the ocean, they're using it to determine depth, partly. And they're using it to determine location, of course, and they're using it to determine, in that sense of, without senseless, they can go through time. They can go through all the currents of what you might call earthly time. The underground water world has no time, but they can use it in a way where they're approximating. It translates into their mind in a number-coded way, so the sonar can help them determine when it's appropriate for them to eat and when it isn't. Not where to find the food, and I'm not talking about that, he's saying, but sort of like if you take your temperature, I feel my pulse, I must be alive. Well, they use it in a similar fashion. They can also use it to make these sonar signals that will go down into the tunnels of the hollow earth. There are many thousands of tunnels that go into the hollow earth to the life forms that are in the hollow earth, and it's really not hollow, but that sometimes is how it's referred to. And the sonar sort of is like a translucent, transparent vibration that sort of announces their arrival. And why would it be useful to announce their arrival even if they're not physically going there? The sonar that lands in the hollow earth can, at times, there's this complex subject, and he says I probably shouldn't have brought it up near the end of our time here together, but just wanted to touch and bring in the animal kingdom because we've talked so much about human beings. But much of the work and the ease of earthly time is also being held, the higher frequencies of not being linked to time are being held by the mammals of the underground water world. That was the direct link point I wanted to make, and they do it through sonar. It's not through sonar location, it's just through sonar language. It's very much what we might call in some circles the light workers toning and light language. I use the harmonic code to give you the number if you wanted to use it to sort of quell time. Well, there's the tones that they're emitting also is not purely for location. They're harmonic tones that are codes that are opening up passageways for interdimensional travel. So when we talk about time and honor time, honor the passage of time, I want to honor time in a way. I don't want our teaching to fall upon your ears as though I'm sitting in a judgment of it, but certainly in the way that time may go about as one honors your journey or honors your life, or you look back upon your life in that way that a process can be revealed. Know that much, again, of the work that's being done above the ground is also being done under the deepest of the oceans by civilizations that are yet to be discovered. I suppose at this time that might be enough for some of your hearts and minds to think about. I hope I've expanded your vision in some way, whether you accept the expanded vision or not. We do hope to find ourselves convening here in a joy-filled, happy, unified state in X many days. Notice I didn't even say the date for a reason. He's kind of playing with us. Soon. So one more thing before I leave. Just try for an experiment, if you would, dear souls, that you make it your intention over the next week or two, let's say, to try to notice every time you reference time and how many times you say it. Oh, I'll be back soon. I'm coming home here. I'm going home. Words like soon, immediately, not now, later. All of these words that relate to time, I'd be asking some of you to make mindful intention. Keep a little log, even for a day. I think it will be overwhelmingly evident to you that there are new ways to look about your life without having it hemmed in. At least I hope I've opened your eyes to some degree, at least a small bit. and your hearts for that matter too. Be blessed, be well, be joyous. Know that you're loved and appreciated. We ourselves, the High Council of Angels, and all the others that are convened here in our convening moment, value you for the time that you've set aside for this moment for yourselves and for any teaching you wish to share to others. Until we meet again, remain blessed and remain pure beings of light. All right, I'm going to thank everybody. It's hard to follow Michael. So thanks, Linda. Appreciate everybody that's listening. We'll call in. We'll have the replays. And looking forward. Oh, see, I've already. See you. Nope, can't. How about bye? Ciao. Hasta la vista. Okay. Bye, friends.
Adios.
Bye, Kelly.
Bye now.
Yes.